So welcome to our session today on transforming pharmaceutical R&D through industrialized machine learning. Myself, Ian Dix, will be presenting along with Rui Wang. I'm the head of Enterprise Data and AI Services, having worked in the pharmaceutical industry in bioinformatics and IT for the last 20 plus years. And Rui's been within AstraZeneca for the last 5 or 6 years, working as the head of R&D, compute and core engineering. We're going to cover 5 different areas. So I'm going to cover the data and AI mission within AstraZeneca, the technical and business challenges, and where we are today. And then Rui's going to pick up on our approach to solve the problem and what we're planning on next. So the vision we have for R&D data and analytics is threefold. It's really focused around these 3 major buckets of accelerating, enabling, and transforming R&D activities through AI and data. Now, the accelerating is really focused on the automation of the mundane, the manually intensive, the routine steps in drug discovery and development. In all activities in industry, you'll see there's a lot of activities that involve data processing, document selection, document sorting, document filtering, looking at images, processing images. And it's really looking at where we've got these more simple AI challenges where you're typically dealing with single types of data sets, relatively straightforward AI challenges, and basically automating these activities. And this is where we're using a lot of COTS and third-party solutions to actually deploy. The second area is really about how we enable the 400 or 500 data scientists we have across R&D and beyond in the organization, all of which have got high demand for data, data science environments, and building out data science and analytic solutions. Really what these guys are doing is supporting decision support across the R&D enterprise, really working as embedded quants and data scientists with the R&D teams. So what we're looking to do there is really support them with provisioning of high quality data, and really we're looking at fair data. So if you haven't come across the term fair, what we're really referring to is data that's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And what we mean by that, they got the ability to search for that data. They can access that data either through machine or as a human form, or that data is interoperable. In that sense, it's got a common language across it, and it's reusable. We've got enough information around that data to actually understand what you can use it for, the regulatory compliance around it, the legal rights we have to that data, and making sure that we're actually it's fit for purpose for the analytics that's needed. So that's a big challenge for us, is how do we actually surface a lot of that data across the R&D pipeline. The second part, which we'll be discussing here in more detail, is really around the data science platform that is required to support these data scientists. And really that's about having the right tools, the access to the right data within that environment, and the right security and policies and compute and storage setups within that environment to support the analytics workflows. And then we're layering on a number of AI services on top. And these AI services are often built by the data scientists themselves or the AI engineers. And really, these are sub-microservices to really support the workflows. And so this would be like image patch analysis or NER, name entity recognition work. So these are reusable services that we've got across the estate. And then the third part, which I'll talk about a bit more in my next slide, is really about how we're transforming R&D. And this is really about doing the impossible. And so these are the big grand challenges we have across the R&D estate. And so, and these occur across all stages. So for example, how we're thinking about target selection, how we're thinking about drug design, how we're looking at how we're doing clinical trial design, how we're looking at activities around drug response. And so here, this requires a more concerted effort. It's not about the individual data scientists or a couple of data scientists tackling a problem. It's really looking at how we bring teams together to basically aggregate and conform data at scale, and really build quite advanced AI solutions, often in partnership with third-party organizations. And so if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is some of the major challenges that we have. So data and AI are going to be critical for transforming R&D. The average cost in the industry for producing a drug is over $2 billion and 10 years of R&D activity. That's not really sustainable as an industry. And so AstraZeneca and the wider pharmaceutical industry are really keen to see how data and AI can actually improve our success rates, because a lot of that cost is due to the failure we are seeing in R&D activities. So only 1 in 10 drugs entering a phase 1 clinical trial actually make it as a licensed product. And a lot of that failure actually happens in expensive phase 2 and phase 3 studies where we fail to show efficacy. So the key is how do we fail fast, all right, and how do we get more productive in producing drugs for patients? So we're looking at data and AI activities, and we're seeing, although we can't yet produce a in silico human, right, and we cannot run completely in silico clinical trials using digital twins, what we are building is substantial bodies of knowledge and understanding of the sub-processes that go on in the drug R&D process. So, for example, understanding our disease, we're collecting an enormous body of knowledge around disease processes, metabolic processes, understanding how proteins are interacting with disease. And so that gives us better understanding of how we can block and activate pathways to actually modulate disease in humans. And then we're looking at how we're the next generation of therapeutics. So we've got a lot of investment going on in drug design, in predictive drug synthesis, in drug property prediction. So really looking at the absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion of drugs. And we're also looking heavily at the clinical study process itself. So there we're looking at can we select patients better based on biomarkers, looking at more advanced diagnostic techniques with digital pathology and radiology studies. We're looking at trial design, and so looking about where we've had successful recruitment. We're looking at the types of demographics of patients, looking at the protocol design. A lot of that is about collecting existing data, piecing that together, and looking at optimal models for running novel studies. And so we're seeing the application of data and AI across the estate. So the approach we're taking is both a bottom-up and a top-down approach. So the 5R model was published by AstraZeneca, first of all, probably 5, 7, 8 years ago. And really this is about trying to identify the right target, the right tissue, the right safety, the right patient, the right commercial across the value chain. And what we're looking at now is focused data science activities to support that decision making. And so we've got a federated population of data scientists and activities of building out data and AI products to support those decisions. Now, but when you start looking at this bottom up, you start to see that there's column elements across all of this. There's common sets of data, there's common data infrastructures, there's common AI components, common engineering components we need to build. And so we're both approaching this from the federated top-down business focused, as well as the engineering bottom-up approach. So we're building out a production R&D data foundation, which is really about a data mesh of interlinked data products with a common language and which are fair data. We're looking at these AI services, things like NLP, microservices, reasoning engines, deep learning, and what we'll be discussing later in this presentation around AI Bench. And then, of course, these dedicated AI products. So like our knowledge graph, which is really looking at target selection, or things like augmented drug design, where we're looking at synthesis prediction or activity prediction, or things like Merlin, where we're doing clinical trial design. And so both are important, both have got their challenges, and the trick here is how do we marry these up to give them a more integrated approach. So moving on to the challenge of AI and what we're trying to do on the AI side, I think it's well known in across the community of the challenge we have here, in the sense that the actual code, the writing the ML code, is a very small fraction of everything we need to do in this environment. So there's a lot of work we need to do around how we collect that data, do the feature extraction, verify that data, look at the infrastructure, how we look at the process. And often we're also working with clinical data, so we need to look at the GXP validation across that whole estate. So 7 years on, right, from when this paper was published in 2014, we're still challenged with this in R&D. And so what you'll be hearing about today is some of our processes that we've been putting in to actually move this forward. So there's 5 main challenges that we have. One is really around the security and governance. So what we're actually putting in place is cloud-based infrastructure for AI and ML. And when we started this journey 3 or 4 years ago, most of our security and governance was set up around on-prem solutions. And so there's a lot of challenges and changes that we need to be putting into our governance and our security processes to operate in the cloud with personal and company sensitive data. The second challenge is really around this data, and it's not just around the data quality and whether it's fair, it's also around the governance processes around it. And so data we're dealing with is often associated with patients, with clinical trials. We got to make sure we got the consent right. We're operating within both company policy as well as country regulations. And so making sure that whole process is working end to end is key. The third area is around self-service and automation. So again, when we started this process, there was a number of different teams that need to be coming together to actually support an end-to-end workflow around AI. And so we've got infrastructure, we got networks, we got security, we got identity management, we've got engineering teams, we got AI and data scientists. And what we've ended up with is quite a complex team to actually, from multiple different groups, having to work together to actually develop an end-to-end AI solution. This actually creates a lot of inefficiencies. It's not a very lean process. And so one of our challenges has been how do we improve the self-service and automation of this end-to-end? And so it's not a case that we're dealing with a lot of hand-to-hand handoffs. The fourth area, is the tooling. What we've also found is that because we're quite a large organization and there's a lot of federation of AI and data science activities, there's a lot of development of local tools and adoption of local tools by data science teams and AI teams. So, and often they don't necessarily give them all the right skills and all the right capabilities that are required for the job. So one of the challenges then is that if we start building up centralized services for this, is how do we move the adoption and migrate people onto the standardized platforms? And a part of that is about making sure that what we're building out is better than what they have. But again, it's about trying to pull the organization in the same direction. And then the third is really around that standard pattern and standard processes. And so, as I was mentioning around the self-service and automation, the actual process of going from an idea to data capture, to data standardization, to feature extraction, to model training, model testing, validation, model deployment, and then of course wrapping that up into a software product involves a number of different teams. Not all of it is going to be driven by self-service. So again, is how do we, when we've got the processes and the interfaces clean, how do we actually ensure that we have the right skills and the right teams to actually operate at speed in an agile manner to deliver AI efficiently? So our goal has really been looking at is providing a democratized access to ML and cloud tooling. We want to make sure that the hundreds of data scientists in the organization are actually got the right tools at the right time with access to the right data. They've got the right support. They don't have to worry about the data security. It's easy for them to be compliant with the privacy policies and other compliance policies we have. That we have the range and plethora of ML tools and languages and compute resources to match the different personas. So whether you're dealing with image analytics or text analytics, or whether you're doing predictive modeling on large-scale data, you have the right tools available for you. And of course, we want to try and make sure that this is reusable and reproducible across the enterprise using standard architecture and patterns for machine learning. So really, we want to get to self-service, end-to-end managed infrastructure and operations solutions for ML, data science, and AI across the entire delivery lifecycle. And we have made significant progress towards this. We've launched AI Bench, which is an AWS-based self-service AI environment, which is now we've got hundreds of projects running on that since its launch last year, with hundreds of active users, and with environments to be created in days rather than months. This environment is also GXP data science compliant. So GXP is a quality framework and a set of regulations that were required for when dealing with drug development and drug manufacturing, and really anything we're dealing with clinical study decision making, we have to have GXP compliance. And this is really, really important for us because a lot of our key data analytics involves that clinical data. We've also deployed Dataiku, which is a citizen data science platform for us, which has got assisted workflows. And so these many of our data scientists are not engineers. They're good quants, they're good biologists or chemists, and have good statistical and analytical skills. And really, what they're looking for is the sort of the workflow type approach to data science. And so this has got good uptake across R&D. And now we're looking at also for groups in commercial and operations, and our enabling units, which are groups like finance and HR, are also exploring for use more widely. And then we're also looking at some of the existing landscape. So when we started a lot of this work, teams often outsourced activities such as some of their data science or data management work. But they didn't necessarily outsource to all the same organizations. So we have ended up with a lot of data silos or siloed data science activities. So what we're looking now is at how to repatriate a number of these activities. So we do end up with a complete internalized data mesh and also a full end-to-end understanding of our data science activities and making sure we've got control and they're fully auditable, and we're making sure we're fully compliant on those environments. So we're currently bringing a lot of that activity in-house and actually supporting this from our internal setup. And at this point, I'll hand over to Rui, who's going to go through how we've achieved this over the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you, Ian. This is a quick slide to highlight the collaboration between AstraZeneca and AWS. AWS team, especially our AWS account team, has been providing extensive support throughout the journey of working and designing our AI bench. They provide architecture design, which is helping us and guiding our own solution architect to design the GxP compliant AI bench environment. They also offered AWS professional services to co-build the environment with us. They contributed massively in shaping up our operating model, our costing model, in terms of designing our AWS-based AI bench. They also provided ongoing knowledge transfer and training for our end users using the platform on a regular basis, which makes sure that our team can hit the ground running from day one, and our users using the platform can support and know how to use AWS services on AI bench. So working with our AWS account team, with the support we are getting, we have decided that we would like to take a practical and incremental approach in designing our enterprise platform, known as AI Bench. Initially, we have decided to focus on two core issues. The first issue is really the need of a standard platform for performing data science and machine learning activities. And this is solely lacking in AstraZeneca at the point we started on the journey. The second issue is really the need of from our data science and machine learning engineers to access and leverage cloud native component, such as Amazon SageMaker and Amazon EMR in AWS environment. The first design of AI Bench is AI Bench 1.0. AI Bench 1.0 is based on a single AWS account and multi-tenant approach, where each project in our environment will get a dedicated working space. And with this working space, our project team will get security guardrails and also access control. So they can be ensured the data they put into this environment and also the project boundaries are protected throughout the life cycle of the project. The other key capability we introduced as part of the design of AI Bench 1.0 is really trying to ensure we have self-service for our end users. Our end users, leveraging AWS Service Catalog, is able to provision AWS component and also additional tools like RStudio in AI Bench 1.0. So it has been certainly an interesting journey designing AI Bench 1.0. What did we learn from this journey? We learned that it's really valuable for getting people started, especially the early stage of the exploration and project scoping phase of the ML project. But At the same time, we find that there are some challenges and limitations with AI Bench 1.0. The key challenges are it's very difficult to host a production ML service on AI Bench 1.0. It's lacking critical development environment segregation, so there's no separate dev, pre-prod, prod environments. It's also missing some critical deployment capabilities like continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines. In addition to this limitation, because a lot of our data science team and machine learning team would like to analyze their data, analyze clinical data, they will require GXP compliant environment. And the AI Bench 1.0, because it's multi-tenant environment, does not allow us very easily to qualify for GXP regulation. So taking that learning, we decided to have another stab at the problem. And this is when we introduced the second version of the AI Bench 2.0. In 2.0, we have gone down the route of single tenant, multi-account approach. So every time when a project is trying to onboard into the platform, by default, they will get 3 AWS accounts: service automation account, dev pre-prod account, and also prod account. In particular, the service automation account contains all the service catalogs for being able to provision AWS services and tooling into dev pre-prod and prod account. It also has all essential tools for engineering. For example, AWS Code Pipeline, AWS Code Build, to design CI/CD pipeline to deploy in a production manner into additional accounts. The most important aspect of this service automation account is really around data, how we track data, how we track logs. All the data and logs are stored in the service automation account. This enables us to track machine learning workflow end to end and be able to perform audit throughout this environment. We also managed to qualify AI Bench 2.0. What this means is our data scientists and machine learning engineers will be able to use AI Bench 2.0 to perform GXP compliant machine learning activities. So we started with AI Bench 1.0. We evolved into AI Bench 2.0 right now. Let me take you through an example, a real-world example in terms of how we accelerate science using AI Bench. This is really a case of literature surveillance in AstraZeneca. Every year, our internal AstraZeneca teams need to review hundreds of thousands of abstracts from different literature databases. Some of them are internal, some are external. The goal of reviewing this abstract is really for us to identify potential signals, which could potentially impact our clinical trial decisions or drug discovery decisions. The original approach has been taken was to manually review all of this abstract from publications. This both is labor intensive and also time consuming, very slow. And the other thing we also noticed as part of this process is the quality of the review, because the human involvement in the process is really variable. So there's not good way for us to guarantee the quality. Facing this challenge, our internal AI engineering team have decided to adopt natural language processing technique to automate the process of performing literature surveillance. The workflow they have designed and co-designed with our team is deployed on AI Bench. It's heavily leveraging existing AWS native components, such as SageMaker, such as Lambda function. And as part of this process, we go through 5 different stages: data preparation using SageMaker, extract features, and also process data stored as an intermediate step, batch training to be able to train the model, then register model, store the model in a location so we can refer to the model in the future. The last step would be batch prediction, so deploying that model in the production fashion, which will be exposed through Lambda function via Amazon API gateway. Our data have shown since the deployment of this workflow that not only this is much faster in terms of reviewing the abstract of the literatures, and also the throughput of this automated pipeline is really impressive. The accuracy of this model using NLP is much better than human review. And the best thing with this approach is the precision of the models will increase over time with the learning. Okay, so I have given you an overview in terms of the journey we took and the example of how we deploy machine learning workflows onto AI Bench. So what's next for us? When we started this journey, it used to take months for scientists and data scientists and engineers to set up a proper machine learning environment to start developing. Now with AI Bench 2.0, we have reduced that time to days. So within days, a project team can be onboarded into AI Bench environment. They can start working on designing the machine learning workflows straight away and deploy them into a GXP regulated environment. What we want to get next very soon is reproducible machine learning by introducing model governance and also model management, be able to enrich our machine learning persona experience, to help our machine learning teams to be able to have that end-to-end reproducibility for their workflows. And in the not so distant future, we would like to get to medical machine learning applications, so software as a medical device, to be able to allow us to deploy our machine learning models into medical settings. With that, I will end our presentation. Thank you for your time.